So what, you just handle insurance claims now? My uncle said, swirling his bourbon. The amber liquid caught the restaurant's dim lighting as he leaned back in his chair, that familiar smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. I smiled politely and cut into my steak. Something like that. My brother snorted. Come on, Sarah, just say it. You push papers for an insurance company. Nothing wrong with that. Not everyone can handle the OR. Around the table, my father's colleagues nodded knowingly. This was supposed to be a celebration dinner for Dad's retirement from the hospital where he'd been chief of surgery for 20 years. The entire table was packed with surgeons, anesthesiologists, and medical directors. People who'd spent their careers in operating rooms, making life and death decisions before their morning coffee. And then there was me. The medical field isn't for everyone, my uncle continued. He'd been Dad's best friend since medical school, now head of trauma surgery at Johns Hopkins. Takes a certain constitution. Your father and I have seen plenty of bright students wash out, nothing to be ashamed of. I took a sip of water, nodded. Let them talk. Remember when you fainted during that ER rotation? My brother added, grinning. He was an orthopedic surgeon, following directly in Dad's footsteps. 3rd year of med school, and you couldn't even handle a compound fracture. Michael, my mother said quietly, but no one was listening to her. They never did. I just think it's practical, my aunt chimed in. Sarah was always more suited for the administrative side. She's detail-oriented, organized. That's valuable too. Detail-oriented. Organized. The words people use when they mean not good enough for the real work. My father hadn't said much all evening. He just watched me with that same expression I'd seen my entire life. The one that said, I expected more. The one that appeared when I chose emergency medicine over his surgical program. The one that deepened when I told him I was leaving the hospital where he'd arranged a residency for me. How's the insurance work treating you? One of the colleagues asked, trying to be polite. Must be nice having regular hours, no night shifts. It has its moments, I said. I bet, my uncle laughed. Lot less stressful than what we do. No one dies if you file a form wrong. The table chuckled. Even my mother smiled a little. I'd stopped trying to correct them about 6 months ago, stopped trying to explain. They'd built their narrative, and nothing I said would change it. Sarah, the daughter who couldn't cut it. Sarah, who went to medical school but couldn't handle the pressure. Sarah, who now shuffled papers while her brother saved lives. Let them think that. The waiter appeared with dessert menus, but my uncle waved him off. We need to settle up soon. I've got an early surgery tomorrow. High-profile case. Senator's wife. Oh, right, my father said, finally engaging. The cerebral aneurysm. Tricky one. They dove into shop talk, surgical techniques, mortality rates. The kind of conversation I'd heard at every family dinner since I was old enough to sit at the adult table. My phone buzzed in my purse. I glanced at the screen. Dr. Winters. Incoming. ETA, 3 minutes. Multi-vehicle. Need you. I stood up, grabbing my jacket from the back of the chair. Leaving already? My brother asked. Got some claims to file? Something came up. On a Saturday night? My uncle raised his eyebrows. What? Did someone's fender-bender paperwork get urgent? I kissed my mother on the cheek. Happy retirement, Dad. I'll call you tomorrow. As I walked toward the exit, I heard my uncle's voice carry across the restaurant. That's the problem with desk jobs. Always on call, but for nothing important. More laughter. I pushed through the doors into the cool October air and ran for my car. The thing about trauma is that it doesn't care about your dinner plans. I made it to Metro General in 11 minutes, pulling into the ambulance bay just as the first rig screamed around the corner. I was already in my scrubs, badge clipped to my chest, trauma gown tied. What have we got? I called out as the bay doors opened. Pile up on the I-95, the paramedic shouted over the noise, semi-jackknifed. At least 7 vehicles. This is the first wave. The first gurney rolled out. Male, mid-40 seconds, unconscious, chest compressed from the steering wheel. I could see the flail chest from 6 feet away. Trauma 1, I snapped. Get me a chest tube tray and call respiratory. Winters, you take the second one. Doctor. Winters. My attending, though that was mostly a formality these days, nodded. On it. Frost. Frost. The nickname had started during my first month in the ER. A gang shooting had come in, 3 victims, all critical. I was the newest resident, barely 2 weeks out of medical school. Everyone expected me to panic, to freeze, to prove I was exactly what my family thought I was. Instead, I'd gone cold. Not cold like emotionless, cold like ice, clear, precise, every movement calculated, every decision made before the last one finished. No wasted motion, no hesitation. I'd saved 2 of the 3. The third was gone before the ambulance arrived. Afterward, the trauma nurse had said, "Jesus, Dr. Winters, where'd you find this one? She's got ice in her veins." Dr. Winters had smiled. "That's Dr. Frost to you." The name stuck. Now, 3 years later, I was the one they called when things went sideways. The one they wanted when the case was bad enough that even the veterans got nervous. The patient in Trauma 1 was crashing, oxygen saturation dropping. I could hear the pneumothorax from the diminished breath sounds. "Betadine," I said, "hand out." The nurse slapped the bottle into my palm. I prepped the site in seconds. Scalpel. The blade cut clean. Muscle, then pleura. The rush of air confirmed what I already knew. Tube. I threaded it in. Connected suction. The lung re-expanded. Oxygen levels climbed. "Blood pressure's dropping," the nurse called out. "He's bleeding somewhere. Get me a fast scan. Someone call the OR and tell them we're coming up." The ultrasound showed free fluid in the abdomen. Lots of it. "Splenic rupture," I said. "Maybe liver too. Let's move." We were racing toward the elevator when the second wave hit. 4 more ambulances. 2 more critical patients. "Dr. Frost," one of the ER attendings called out. "We need you in Trauma 3. "Winters has it," I shouted back, already in the elevator with my patient. "I'll be back in 20. The surgery took 45 minutes. Ruptured spleen, lacerated liver, and a mesenteric tear that would have killed him in another 10 minutes. By the time I closed and handed him off to the ICU team, it was past midnight. I scrubbed out, changed into fresh scrubs, and headed back down to the ER. It was chaos. The kind of beautiful, terrible chaos that I'd learned to navigate like breathing. Dr. Frost, chest pain in 4. "Frost, we need eyes on this EKG." "Dr. Frost, the PEDS patient in 6 is seizing." I moved between rooms like water. The chest pain was a STEMI heart attack. I called the cath lab, started the protocol, had him on his way in 6 minutes. The EKG showed a subtle STEMI that the intern had missed. Another life saved by catching it early. The seizing child needed IV lorazepam and a glucose check. Simple, fixable. By 3 a.m., the ER had quieted to its normal late-night rhythm. The critical patients were stable or transferred. The walking wounded had been treated and sent home. I was at the nurse's station, finishing charts, when Dr. Winters sat down beside me. "Hell of a night," he said. "Saturdays usually are." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "You ever going to tell your family what you actually do?" I kept typing. "Why?" "Because you're one of the best trauma residents I've ever worked with. Because you're going to be chief resident next year. Because you've saved more lives in the past 6 months than most doctors save in a career." He paused. "Because letting them think you file insurance claims is insane. They're happier thinking that. How do you figure?" I stopped typing and looked at him. Dr. Winters was 62, with gray hair and kind eyes. He'd been working in emergency medicine for 35 years. He'd trained hundreds of doctors, and somehow, he'd decided I was worth believing in. "My father wanted me to be a surgeon," I said. "Like him. Like my uncle. Like my brother. He had it all planned out. I'd join his practice, take over when he retired, carry on the legacy. But you chose the ER." "I chose the ER," I confirmed. And to him, that's the same as quitting. Emergency medicine isn't real medicine to him. It's just glorified triage. He thinks I couldn't handle the precision of surgery, the long procedures, the real responsibility. That's bullshit. I smiled. "Yeah, but it's his bullshit. And if I tell him what I'm actually doing, he'll find a way to diminish it. He'll say I'm at a small hospital, or I'm only doing easy cases, or I haven't really proven myself yet. There will always be a reason why it doesn't count." "So you let them think you gave up?" I let them think whatever they want. I went back to my charts. I know what I do. The patients know, the nurses know, you know. That's enough. Dr. Winters shook his head but didn't argue. The truth was more complicated than I'd told him. The truth was that every time I walked into a trauma bay, every time I made a split-second decision that meant the difference between life and death, every time I held someone's heart beating in my hands, literally or figuratively, I was proving something. Not to my father, not to my uncle or my brother or anyone else, to myself. Because that version of me that fainted during the ER rotation in medical school, she was real. That panic, that overwhelming fear that I wasn't good enough, that I'd never be good enough, that was real too. So I'd done what I always did when I was scared. I'd worked. At 4 a.m., while my classmates slept, I was in the skills lab, practicing intubations on mannequins. While they were at happy hours, I was running stairs in the hospital, building the endurance to stand in the OR for 12 hours straight. While they studied from textbooks, I was following the trauma team, watching, learning, memorizing every move. I'd failed my first central line placement, stuck the patient 3 times, hands shaking, before the attending had to take over. I'd cried in the bathroom afterward, sure I'd never make it. Then, I practiced, 50 times on training models, 100 times, until my hands didn't shake, until I could do it half asleep, in the dark, with the patient crashing. The fainting incident? I'd gone home that night and forced myself to watch surgical videos until I didn't flinch. Then trauma videos. Then autopsy footage. I desensitized myself systematically, methodically, the way you'd train yourself for anything else. Because here's what my father never understood. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's being terrified and doing it anyway. It's knowing you might fail and trying anyway. It's falling down and getting back up and falling down again until finally, one day, you don't fall. By the time I finished residency, I could run a trauma bay with my eyes closed. But my family didn't know that. They'd stopped asking about my career after I turned down my father's surgical program. They'd constructed their own narrative, and I'd let them, because proving them wrong required their belief that I could. And I didn't need their belief anymore. I had my own. 3 weeks later, I was in the attending's lounge, grabbing coffee between shifts, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Dr. Chen, I answered. Sarah? My mother's voice was high, panicked. Sarah, you need to come. It's your father. My stomach dropped. What happened? He collapsed. At the hospital. They're saying it's his heart. We're in the ER at Johns Hopkins. Please, Sarah, I don't know what to do. I'm coming. Mom, listen to me. Is he conscious? No, they have him on machines. Sarah, I'm scared. I know. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Tell them I'm coming. Tell them I'm his daughter and I'm a physician. I hung up and ran for my car. The ER at Johns Hopkins was a cathedral compared to Metro General. Everything was newer, cleaner, more expensive. I hated it immediately. I found my mother in the waiting room, my brother beside her. My uncle was standing near the nurse's station, talking to someone in a white coat. Sarah, my mother grabbed my hands. They won't tell me anything. They keep saying they're running tests. It's okay. I'll find out. I walked over to the nurse's station, pulled out my hospital badge. Dr. Sarah Chen, Metro General ER. My father was brought in, Robert Chen. I need to speak with his attending. The nurse looked at my badge, then nodded. That would be Dr. Morrison. He's with the patient now. Trauma Bay 2. I didn't wait for permission. I pushed through the doors. The trauma bay was exactly like the ones I worked in, just shinier. My father was on the gurney, intubated, monitors beeping. A tall man in his 50s was studying the EKG printout. Dr. Morrison? He looked up. Your family? Daughter. And I'm an ER physician at Metro General. What's his status? Morrison's expression shifted slightly. The dismissiveness that had been there when he thought I was just family sharpened into professional courtesy. Anterior STEMI. Extensive. He coded once in the ambulance, got him back. We're prepping him for the cath lab, but there's significant damage. The next few hours are critical. I looked at the monitors. Read the numbers. Saw what he wasn't saying. What's his ejection fraction? 20%. My chest tightened. Normal was 50 to 70. 20% meant his heart was barely functioning. Has cardiology seen him? Dr. Patterson's on her way down. Should be here in 5 minutes. I nodded. Looked at my father. Even intubated, even unconscious, his face still had that expression. The one that expected more. The doors behind me opened. My uncle walked in. "Sarah," he said, "you shouldn't be in here. I'm a physician. You're an insurance adjuster." His voice was sharp. "This is a medical situation. Let the professionals handle it." I turned to Dr. Morrison. "I'm a board-certified emergency medicine physician. I've handled more STEMIs in the past month than most cardiologists see in a year. I want to be consulted on his care." Morrison looked between me and my uncle, clearly confused. "She works in insurance," my uncle said. "She left medicine." "I'm an attending at Metro General," I said, pulling out my hospital badge again, this time showing Morrison the full credentials. 3 years in emergency medicine. "I can have my department head call if you need verification." Morrison took my badge, studied it, then handed it back. "Metro General? You work with Dr. Winters? He's my supervising attending." Something in Morrison's face changed. "James Winters trained me. If you work with him, you're welcome to consult on the case." Behind me, I heard my uncle's sharp intake of breath. The doors opened again. A woman in her 40s, cardiology badge visible, walked in. "Patterson," Morrison said. "This is Dr. Chen. She's the patient's daughter and an ER attending. She'll be consulting with us." Dr. Patterson nodded at me, already moving to the monitors. "Let's see what we've got." For the next 20 minutes, we worked, discussed options, ran through scenarios. The damage was extensive. Dad would need bypass surgery, probably a pacemaker, definitely months of cardiac rehab. But he'd live. When Patterson left to prep the cath lab, Morrison turned to me. "He's in good hands. We'll take care of him." "I know you will." I walked out of the trauma bay. My uncle was still standing there, face pale. "How long?" he asked quietly. "How long what? How long have you been lying?" "I haven't lied once," I said. "You assumed. I let you. You let us think you gave up medicine." "No, you decided I gave up. I just didn't correct you." He stared at me. "Why?" I could have said a lot of things. Could have told him about the years of being compared to my brother, the constant implications that I wasn't good enough, the way my father's eyes glazed over every time I tried to talk about emergency medicine. Instead, I said, "Because it didn't matter what you thought. It only mattered what I did." I walked back to the waiting room. My mother stood up immediately. "He's stable," I told her. "They're taking him to the cath lab. Dr. Patterson is one of the best cardiac surgeons on the East Coast. He's going to be okay." She grabbed me, held on tight. "Thank you. Thank you for coming." "Of course, Mom." My brother was watching me. "You work at Metro General?" "I do." "Winters is training you?" "He was. Now we're colleagues." Michael sat back down slowly. "Metro General. That's the highest volume trauma center in the state." "Second highest," I corrected. "Hopkins has us beat by about 15%. "And you're an attending there?" "As of 6 months ago. Chief resident before that." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "The insurance thing is what you wanted to believe?" I finished. "So I let you." My mother looked between us, confused. "What's happening?" "Sarah, what are you talking about?" "Nothing, Mom. Dad's going to be fine. That's what matters." 6 hours later, Dad was out of surgery. Triple bypass, 1 stent, and a lecture from Dr. Patterson about lifestyle changes. He'd be in the hospital for a week, then home for recovery. I stayed until he was moved to the ICU, stable and sedated. My mother finally agreed to go home and sleep. My brother left to check on his own patients. I was gathering my things when my uncle found me in the hallway. "Sarah." I stopped. "I need to apologize," he said. For everything. For assuming. For the things I said at dinner. You don't need to apologize," I interrupted. "You believed what you wanted to believe. That's on you, not me." Still, I was wrong. I looked at him. This man who'd known me since I was born, who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd also spent my entire adult life subtly implying I wasn't good enough for the family legacy. "I work in a trauma center," I said quietly. "I see people on the worst days of their lives. I put them back together when everyone else has given up. I make decisions in seconds that most doctors get hours to consider. I hold beating hearts in my hands, and I don't flinch." I paused. "And I'm good at it. Really good. Not because of my last name or because of who my father is. Because I worked for it. Because I earned it." My uncle nodded slowly. "So when you apologize," I continued, "apologize for the right thing. Don't apologize for assuming I failed. Apologize for never asking if I succeeded." I walked away before he could respond. My father woke up 2 days later. I was in his room, reviewing his charts with the cardiac team, when his eyes opened. "Sarah?" His voice was rough from the intubation. I moved to his bedside. "Hey, Dad, don't try to talk. You had surgery. You're okay." He looked around, processing. Saw the monitors, the IV lines, the hospital room. "What happened?" "Heart attack. Massive one. You coded in the ambulance. But they got you back, and Dr. Patterson performed a triple bypass. You're going to be fine." He was quiet, absorbing this. Then, "You were here?" I was. "The whole time?" "Most of it." Something in his expression shifted. The doctor in him was waking up, piecing together the medical details. "You consulted on my case?" "I did." "How?" "I'm an attending. Emergency medicine. Metro General." I watched him process this. Saw the confusion, then the realization, then something I couldn't quite name. "You're a doctor?" "I've been a doctor for 3 years, Dad, and attending for 6 months." "But you said—" "At dinner, you said." "I didn't say anything at dinner. You all assumed. I let you." He closed his eyes. "Why?" "Because it was easier than fighting you. Easier than trying to prove that emergency medicine is real medicine, that I'm not a failure because I didn't become a surgeon, that my choices matter." I paused. "Easier than needing your approval to know I made the right choice." When he opened his eyes again, they were wet. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I know. I should have. I should have asked, should have listened." "Yeah, you should have." We sat in silence for a moment. Then he said, "Tell me about it. About your work." So I did. I told him about the trauma bay, about the impossible saves and the heartbreaking losses, about the night a building collapsed and we treated 27 patients in 4 hours, about the child who'd been in a car accident, who I'd intubated in the field, who was now home and healthy and alive because I didn't give up. I told him about the nickname, about how Frost had started as an observation and become an identity, about how being cold, being clinical, precise, unshakable wasn't a weakness, it was a strength. He listened, really listened. For maybe the first time in my adult life, when I finished, he said, "I'm proud of you." I smiled. "I know. Now. I was proud before. I didn't know how to show it. Didn't know how to support a choice. I didn't understand." "You could have asked." "I could have. I should have." He reached for my hand. "I will. From now on." The thing about families is that they're complicated. They're messy and painful and full of misunderstandings that span decades. You can't fix that with one conversation, one apology, one moment of clarity. But you can start. My father recovered. Slowly, with setbacks and frustrations, but he recovered. And during those weeks of cardiac rehab, something shifted between us. He asked questions. Real questions. About my cases, my training, my goals. He listened when I answered. My mother cried when I told her the full story. "I knew," she said. "I knew you were doing something important. I could see it in your face." My brother took longer. The golden child doesn't easily adjust to discovering he's not the only child worth celebrating. But he came around. Started referring patients to me when they needed emergency care. Started, slowly, treating me like a colleague instead of a failed surgeon. My uncle showed up at Metro General one Tuesday afternoon. Asked for a tour. I showed him the trauma bay. Introduced him to Dr. Winters. Let him see what I'd built. At the end, he said, "Your father talks about you differently now." I noticed. He tells everyone. The cashier at the grocery store. The pharmacist. Random people at his cardiac rehab. My daughter's an ER doctor. Saves lives every day. My uncle smiled. It's actually kind of annoying. I laughed. Good. For what it's worth, he said quietly. I'm sorry it took this long. Sorry I didn't see it sooner. It's worth something, I said. Not everything, but something. 6 months later, I was promoted to Assistant Director of Emergency Medicine at Metro General, youngest in the hospital's history. My father came to the ceremony. So did my mother, my brother, my uncle. Dr. Winters gave a speech about ice and fire and the kind of doctor who could hold both at once. Afterward, at the reception, a young resident approached me nervously. She was in her first month of emergency medicine. I remembered that terror. Dr. Chen, she said, I wanted to thank you. I heard about your story. About how you let your family think you'd given up. About how you just kept working. Oh, I said. That. It helped me. I'm the first doctor in my family. They don't understand what I do. They keep asking when I'm going to get a real job, something with normal hours. She hesitated. I was thinking about quitting, but then I heard what you said. About not needing their approval to know you made the right choice. I looked at this young woman, saw myself in her eyes. Can I tell you a secret? I said. She nodded. It still hurts. Even now. Even with them proud. Even with my father bragging to strangers. There's still a part of me that wishes they'd believed from the beginning. That wishes I hadn't had to prove anything. Her face fell slightly. But, I continued, that hurt is what made me good. The doubt, the fear, the need to prove it to myself, that's what pushed me to be better than I thought I could be. So don't run from it. Use it. Let it fuel you. She smiled. Thank you, Dr. Chen. Call me Frost, I said. Everyone does. Late that night, after everyone had gone home, I stood in the empty trauma bay. This room where I'd saved lives, where I'd lost them, where I'd become the person I was always meant to be. My phone buzzed. Dad. Proud of you, Sarah. Always have been. Sorry it took me so long to say it. I smiled and typed back. Me. I know, Dad. It's okay. And it was. Not perfect. Not fixed. Not without scars. But okay. Because, at the end of the day, the work was what mattered. The lives saved. The hearts restarted. The second chances given. That was enough. That had always been enough. I just had to believe it first. The trauma bay doors opened. A nurse poked her head in. Dr. Frost. Incoming. Multi-vehicle accident. ETA 2 minutes. I grabbed my trauma gown. Tied it tight. Let's go, I said. And I walked into the bay with ice in my veins and fire in my heart, ready to do what I did best. Save lives, one heartbeat at a time.